The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Philadelphia Eagles officially named Kevin Patullo as the new offensive coordinator.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast.
The Philadelphia Eagles have their new offensive coordinator. It is Kevin Patullo, who will replace Kellen Moore in 2025. An internal promotion that was clearly a Nick Sirianni-led decision. Patullo was the Eagles' pass game specialist, pass game coordinator in 2024. Deserves a lot of credit for helping mesh the two philosophies of Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore to create the offense that won the Eagles Super Bowl 59. I like it from a perspective of it brings continuity to a situation that's had little of it. Jalen Hurts, this is going to be his 6th play caller since he's been the Eagles' starting quarterback, or at least since he's been drafted in 2020. So from that perspective, I do like it. But for me, I would have preferred an outside hire, maybe somebody with play calling experience. I do think just bringing in a fresh set of eyes every single year when you do lose your coordinator is a good idea, because then you bring in fresh ideas and it's not stale. And I think internal promotions in the past, they just haven't worked with the Eagles. Like Doug Peterson promoting Mike Groh after Frank Reich left for the Colts. It did not work. Nick Sirianni promoting Brian Johnson after Shane Steichen left in 2023. It did not work. So Kevin Patullo, again, did a really good job of combining both offenses last year. He's Nick Sirianni's right-hand man. The team loves him, like the players have his back, the coaches as well. This was a move that I think most people did sign off on. And he is somebody that's been rising through the ranks in Philadelphia. But for me, I don't love the move based on the history of internal promotions, the fact that he has never called plays before, and just I like the options that were out there. I really liked the idea of a Gerard Johnson or a Josh McCown or somebody from an LA Rams Sean McVay coaching tree just to bring in new ideas, somebody with some play calling experience. That's what I would have preferred, and I think it's what Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie normally prefer as well. It's why they kind of forced Sirianni's hand, I think, last year in hiring Kellen Moore. But it does look like this time around, those two kind of let Nick Sirianni pick. He won the Super Bowl. He deserves the right and the benefit of the doubt to choose his coaching staff. And it is interesting, though. It's a delicate situation that we have faced before in Philadelphia, and it's led to some turmoil, to some power struggles, to some end of eras. Like, this is very similar to what happened with Doug Peterson, because when a head coach comes into Philadelphia, they have to kind of be okay with a unique power dynamic where the GM and owner, they have their hands on everything, more than other teams' owners and general managers. Like, they have say at times in things that normally should be up to the coach, like who's going to be the offensive coordinator? Who's going to be the defensive coordinator? Yes, Nick Sirianni, I'm sure, had a lot of say in bringing in last year Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Like, he deserves credit for those hires, but we know Vic Fangio was Howie's guy. Like, we know Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman wanted Nick Sirianni to bring in an outside voice to help with a stale offense in 2023 that Jalen Hurts was not okay with. So that's normally been the power dynamic in Philadelphia, but when a head coach gets more success, wins championships like Doug Peterson did, like Nick Sirianni did, eventually they get more power and want more power. And that's clearly what happened with Doug. They allowed him to pick his coordinators after Super Bowl 52. He went with Mike Groh, and then, of course, had Press Taylor being a big voice in that locker room for 3 years. They let Nick Sirianni pick this time as well, with Kevin Patullo. But remember what happened. Howie Roseman, Jeffrey Lurie, like, they loosened the leash on Doug. They said, you won the championship, you deserve to pick this next guy. It didn't work. And so what did Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie do? They tightened the leash again. They said in 2020, here's some more cooks in the kitchen. Here's Marty Morningweg. Here's, I can't remember the coach's name from the Shanahan coaching tree over in San Francisco. Here's a bunch of guys mix all of this together because we're not okay with your stale offense. Doug went along with it for one more year, and then he wasn't okay with it anymore. He said, I'm not putting up with this power dynamic. I've earned more, and we're done. And Doug Peterson was fired. Not saying that same thing's going to happen this time around with Nick Sirianni, but it's very important that they do get this right, that Kevin Patullo is a good play caller, is a good offensive coordinator, that this offense does not regress like it did after the previous Super Bowl, like they did after Super Bowl 52. Because, and I'm not saying it could lead to the offense being terrible next year and it could lead to the downfall of Jalen Hurts. Like, there's just too much talent on this offense for them to regress to that level. But if it doesn't work to the satisfaction of the top of this organization, and Nick Sirianni now, like, wants more power, that's where, like, this is delicate. Like, this needs to work, because if they ever want to get their hands on this again like they did last year and like they have in the past with other coaches, like, this is when it could get messy. So this is a very important decision that Nick Sirianni made. And I'm not saying that Howie and Jeffrey were just completely against bringing in Patullo as the OC or promoting him from within. But I do think, like, this is Nick Sirianni's guy. Patullo has been with him since the start, since 2021. I think the internal promotion screams head coach, just like it did with Doug Peterson. So this is a very, very important move that can help keep the peace of the current power dynamic the Eagles have. Because if it doesn't go well, we saw how messy it got with Doug Peterson. We saw in 2023 how messy it got, where who knows if it was Sirianni's choice or Howie's choice to fire Desai during the year, bring in Matt Patricia, who was Howie Roseman's guy. Like, it's gotten messy before. And we know this owner and GM have a history of power struggles with head coaches. Even before Doug Peterson, this happened with Chip Kelly. So Nick Sirianni now has the resume, has the legacy with the ring. I'm very curious. He got the power here. Very curious to see how this one goes. And in the future, if it doesn't work out, how the big three, the head coach, the GM, and the owner, how they will go about that situation. It's very interesting. The past has told us this internal promotion doesn't always go well, and it could lead to more. But at the same time, I'm not trying to say I think a collapse is coming next year again, that Kevin Patullo can't do it just because he hasn't called plays. Like, this offense is so talented, and he did do a really good job last year of combining the best of Nick Sirianni's offense and the best of Kellen Moore's to help kind of marry those two. And so I think Patullo does deserve some credit in that, just like Sirianni and Kellen Moore do. But again, for me personally, I would have preferred the outside hire, a young up-and-coming coach like a Josh McCown or a Gerard Johnson, someone that played the position, maybe somebody that's called plays in the past, although there weren't a lot of great options out there in that way. Like, I was not a fan of the Frank Reich idea. So compared to that, or like Mike McCoy, I'm not in on that. I would prefer Kevin Patullo. But, you know, like in a broader spectrum, like in a vacuum, I like the idea of bringing in fresh ideas every single year when you do lose your offensive coordinator. But I understand it from a continuity perspective. Jalen Hurts has gone through a lot of change on offense, not just in Philadelphia for 6 years, but he has had a different coordinator, a different play caller, literally every year of his career, going back to Alabama and Oklahoma. So from that perspective, again, I do wish it was an outside hire, but I understand why they said maybe continuity trumps everything. And Patullo does deserve a chance here because he did a really good job helping these two different offenses last year mesh into what was a Super Bowl winning offense. So we'll see how it goes. Very interesting to monitor this situation, though, in the future, because it hasn't always gone well in Philadelphia. And the assistant coaching position sometimes has affected that power dynamic with the big three. And I'm not saying it's going to get messy, but this is more important than you think. Like, they got to make sure that Nick's got to make sure that this is right. Philadelphia should want that for sure.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The really not good performance last night on the road. That was not good. That was ugly.
It was really bad. And a few things we can just go ahead and get out of the way. First of all, another horrid start. It's 12-0 before you can even blink. I'm staying at a hotel in Mississippi, and they don't have SEC network, so I had to scramble to. I got here just in time, scramble to get online very quickly, then get my ESPN app running. And by the time I got it all clicked up and running, it was already 12-0. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And, of course, we started that way 9-0 against Auburn. And these slow starts are killing us. But now that's 2 games in a row. We've never had the lead. And I don't even know what to say about that. This team is too good to have 2 things like that happen against. Against Auburn is one thing. They're the number 1 team in the country. Missouri's really good, but to never, ever have the lead, I don't know, Michael.
Yeah. So a couple things. So let's not lose sight of the fact that these two are 2 of the best teams in the conference. We already know how good Auburn is. Auburn is great. Alabama played tight. We can admit that. And Auburn is a more consistent team. Alabama is just, you see the highs and you see the lows. You saw the lows last night, especially on defense. And I don't understand the slow start. They had the lineup change. We were getting a little more excited. I guess because of the lineup change, I don't know. They went back to being careless with the ball. I don't understand what happened with the defense. But remember, Missouri is one of the teams that beat Florida. So this is a good team. They were ready for Alabama. It was a jacked environment for a midweek game. Still no excuses for the way Alabama played on defense. The offense actually came back and played a little bit better. But, again, I don't want to harp too much on the defense. And again, you're still talking about a team that's 21-5 and 10-3 in the SEC. They have to right the ship, though, because again, you cannot let this thing tailspin. This is a critical moment with the stretch that you have coming up. So I don't know what they're going to do these next couple of days to hopefully do a little bit better on defense, but that is definitely a glaring concern. Your backcourt defense. Look, we know Alabama doesn't have the most physical guards. They're small, they're undersized, they're not twitchy. But again, we got to do a better job on those switches. We're leaving way too many people wide open for threes.
I'm going to also say this. I was prepared to tell everyone that, hey, y'all, this is not Jimmy Stein, because I assumed Jimmy Stein would be the name there. And it already has Michael Southern, and I don't know how it did that. I didn't type that there, and I'm scared to death.
Oh, so, it let me do it. I did it.
Oh, my God. I really was. I was very confused.
Well, I tell you what, next time you want me to type in the Asian Jimmy Stein, I can do that. I may do that for fun next time. How about that?
Still funny.
Yeah, I can do that.
But, okay, I think what I like to do after a loss a lot of times, I usually want to try and calm people down. Now, I've had rants of my own, but I usually like to say, especially in basketball, like, okay, let's do it in a managerial technique of a compliment and a critique sandwich, where you do compliment, critique, compliment to sort of, soften the blow on either side. I don't know that I can do that this time, and I think I'm going to do it the opposite: critique, compliment, critique. The first critique, of course, our bigs. Boy, you talk about disappointing. And they've had their moments this year. I thought Cliff Amore was really beginning to fit in this system. Boy, he was just non-existent last night. I don't know where he was 4-4 from the line, which I appreciate. Grant Nelson, he sort of made a few of the first buckets, and then I don't feel like I ever saw him again. If he was out there, I was like, oh, Grant Nelson's out there. Like it sort of was a surprise. And then Jaron Stevenson, again, his regression this year, outside of one game where he had a really nice game here a couple of games ago, his regression is puzzling, is mystifying. And so the 3 guys that we used the most on the interior, they were just not nowhere to be found last night. And that's a problem.
Well, the really big concern is, too, look at the stretch that you have coming up. You think, Missouri or Auburn was a matchup problem? Florida is a matchup problem. They are huge, and those guys have got to stand their ground. I don't know if it's a confidence issue with Jaron. Again, you see that he'll make plays, but like on rebounds, who just won't be able to hold on the ball, and the other team takes it away from him. And that if Jaron misses the first one or two shots, it's going to be a long night for him. So I think with Jaron's case, it's all confidence. He's got the physical attributes to be great. I mean, we've heard Coach Pannone talk about how Jaron is fantastic in practice, but it does not translate on the court right now. I really think it stems to confidence. With Cliff, I mean, again, I won't say that. I guess we can admit it's a little disappointing at times. You've seen good Cliff, bad Cliff, but remember, this is the MO for the team right now. I don't know why they can't find the steady balance. Is it because of the continual changeup of the lineups? Again, with defense, you need a little continuity. I don't know. That the communication's not there. You have an issue in the backcourt, depending if you play a team with larger guards. So you really need to depend on that front court, and they have let you down at times. Look, Grant hustles. He plays hard, but he takes the ball fake pretty easy. So you see him leave the ground a lot. So again, those are a little more fundamental issues. I don't know, again, if it's from continuity, not playing enough together, and what the issues are with the communication. So they got to figure this out, because again, you're going to be at Tennessee. They're going to try their best to punk you. Tennessee's going to come in there and just try to pound you down. We're not the most physical team up front, so I'm concerned about that. And we already know the matchup issues with Florida. They are so huge, and they are huge, athletic, and their guards are large. Walter Clayton Jr. is going to be a matchup problem too. So Florida is a very difficult matchup for Alabama. Thankfully, that game's at home. I'm not saying Alabama can't win that game, but they're going to have a much better effort on defense than what you've seen these last couple of games.
I think that's a great point about Grant Nelson. He goes for every pump fake, it seems like. I mean, there were several and one opportunities. I think there were two in a row where the foul was on Grant later in the first half last night. And I'm looking at the stat sheet, and it's worse than I thought. I mean, a lot of times I like to go into this sort of blind so you can see my actual reaction as the stat sheet. First of all, Cliff Amore only played 15 minutes. He was 0 of 2. 4 from 4 from the line, but only 2 rebounds. Grant played 18 minutes, 3 of 5 from the field, which isn't awful, but and 2 of 2 from the stripe, but only 3 rebounds. And then there's Jaron Stevenson, who didn't start, but played more minutes than either one of them with 22. He was 1 of 2 from the field. The 1 of 2 was a 3-pointer. And then he had 4 rebounds. And Aiden Sherrill, I thought Aiden Sherrill, in the 6 minutes he played, he was as productive as any of the other guys. So Aiden Sherrill, who didn't play against Auburn pretty famously, I thought he came in and gave 6 good minutes. Now, look, going into this game, I was thinking this is a good game for us. One way or the other, I like going on the road after losing at Auburn, being disappointed, being crestfallen, and you go on the road and you try and recapture your swagger. And they didn't do it. They just didn't do it.
The Auburn Tigers found a way. They take down Arkansas.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers.
Daryl, this was far from Auburn's best game of the season. Honestly, one of the worst performances that they've seen, but they still find a way to win, and that's what this team has continued to do all season long.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that we were concerned about. First of all, the residual effect of a hangover from the Alabama game, Auburn being a little bit emotionally flat, Arkansas coming in here very, very desperate and needing a win, and they played that way. Listen, Arkansas's got 3 really good guards. Their backcourt is really good, and they showed tonight. They got to the basket a lot at will. And if Auburn wouldn't have settled for a lot of 3-point shots, I felt like they could have gotten what they wanted inside, Zach, but they settled. And despite settling, and despite shooting under 40%, they made plays down the stretch when they needed to, hit free throws, and that's what elite teams do. They win when they're not playing their best.
Yeah, I didn't love the offensive approach in this game because of how the game was called. They were letting folks get physical around the basket. And to me, I wish they would have said, hey, Janai, hey, Chaney, hey, Dylan, just go get to the rim. And it seemed like when they tried that, it worked, but I don't know, there was a lot of lazy passing on the perimeter, and sometimes I wish they would have just put Janai in an ISO situation and say, hey, go cook. They're letting y'all play.
Yeah, Arkansas wasn't hitting threes either, but I think they realized that was not going to be their game tonight.
Sure.
So they started going back inside and getting to the foul line. At one point, it was an 8-3 foul differential in the second half. And then once Auburn figured that out and started going to the basket with about 2.5 minutes left to go in the game, they went on another little mini run, about a 7-0 run, and that was the differentiator in the game. That iced the game. Chad's free throws, Denver's free throws. But, Zach, they kept trying to hit three. They were 0 for 11 at one point in the second half at three-pointers, and they kept shooting them. And I get it. You sometimes want to have shooters shoot and shoot your way out. But when you have a decided advantage down low and Arkansas is not guarding you on the block effectively, I hate that they went away from it and settled. But lesson learned in a victory, right? They played pretty good defense on that Z guy, that big Z. They made him try to do everything from the perimeter. He sucked shooting the basketball tonight. He had 2 air balls and was short on everything. Very good defensively on him. But, man, Arkansas's got 3 really quick guards, and Auburn had a really hard time keeping them from getting to the basket.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's 2 ways to look at this. One, I think it's okay to be disappointed that Auburn didn't look like the number 1 team in the country. I guess they really haven't looked like the number 1 team in the country over the last 2 weeks, with the exception of the game at Tuscaloosa. And thank goodness that they did in that game. But on the other side of that coin is, okay, like, this team is number 1, by far has the best resume in college basketball, one of the, like, a historically good resume, and like, they're not peaking yet. Like, they still have so much to get better at. And you've talked about, it's better to learn from close wins than it is, close losses. And we haven't really seen, I don't know, this is one of the lazier games that I've seen from Tahad from a passing standpoint. And I think this will be good coaches tape for Bruce Pearl in situations like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Tahad was lazy passing the basketball. I think that Chad Baker-Mazara at times was a little bit lazy passing the basketball. Auburn got complacent sometimes. They weren't as crisp with ball movement. They weren't as disciplined when they tried to feed the ball down low. It was a little bit sloppy. Look, that being said, here's what I look at in a situation like this. Arkansas came in here. They had a game plan. They executed, and it still wasn't good enough. This is a team that went into Rupp and beat Kentucky playing a similar style. They wanted to keep the game in the 60s. They did that. And still Auburn by 7. And that's what I said earlier in the year. Auburn only shot 38%, only scored 67 points. But guess what? Defensively, they held Arkansas to 60, so they come away with the W.
Yes. Look, just win it. We talked about this before, and I do think you and I disagreed a little. Maybe it was Ben that disagreed with me. But I thought this had a lot of aspects of a trap game where you looked at what they did this past weekend, and it's like, okay, I had breakfast this morning with John Neighbors, who I think you're sitting close to. And he's like, look, from an Arkansas point of view, it's like, I hope y'all are still just jacked up from Saturday's win. And, you haven't quite moved past that yet. And it kind of looks like that's what that was, where it's like, okay, this is just a sluggish game. We don't have to be as crisp. Arkansas is not as good as us. And it almost cost them, Daryl.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, that scared me because I know Arkansas is dangerous because they're talented. There are some teams that their record is who they are from a roster management standpoint, from a talent standpoint. Arkansas's record is a little deceiving. People forget they also beat Michigan earlier in the year in December, who's ranked number 12 in the country on a neutral floor.
On the road, too, I think. I don't think that was in Fayetteville.
No, I think it might have been in a tournament. Maybe it was a neutral site game. But, Michigan's a good basketball team. They're leading the Big Ten right now. And they're the number 12 team in the country, and Arkansas beat them.
Yeah, it was in the Jimmy V Classic.
There you go. So, that's it. This is not a win that should be – it seems to me that Auburn plays a little tighter at home, other than that Oklahoma and Mississippi State game. Lately, they've played a little bit tighter at home in front of this crowd who was electric tonight. But again, Auburn didn't do what they needed to do or what they should have done, and they still came away with a 7-point victory. I think, we don't need to lose sight of that. That's a little frustrating, though, that you realize something's not working and you continually do it. And again, something else, in a very close game, Zach, you don't need to get teed up if you're Chad Baker-Mazara before the end of the first half.
Yeah, I know it's really easy to call out Chad, and a lot of people are doing it. And the result, he needs to quit getting teed up. No question about it. I don't know if a smile really warranted the technical. Like, if he would have elbowed somebody, or if it would have been something like stepping over a dude, absolutely. I don't know if I really care if he's smiling at people.
Well, I can give you the whole context of this, and it'll help.
Okay.
This is where it's really cool being here. The fadeaway jumper he hit on the trip before, he turned around and said something to Arkansas's bench. The referee warned him. He said something to him coming down the floor. Okay, so you've been warned then. So you got it. The next time down he hits the three, he smiled, stared at the bench, and did his jersey like this to the Arkansas bench. Now, that in itself is weak to get a technical about.
Yeah.
But when you just get warned on the trip previously down the floor, all I'm saying is you have to be careful. Don't give the official a reason after he's warned you to do anything like that with 30 seconds left to go in the half. I get your point. In a vacuum, it's weak. But after getting warned, anything you do like that is going to be perceived as taunting, so just stay away from it. Don't take the chance.
Do you think Bruce is sitting him down after stuff like this and saying, like, hey, Chad, this is larger than you. This is about the team. This is about something historic. Do you think those conversations are happening, or do you think it's implied, even though it's been implied all year and it was still kind of happening? What do you think that dynamic is?
Well, I think Bruce sometimes lets the players police themselves. And I can tell you this, having them coming to my end of the court to go to the tunnel at halftime, Broom was getting into Chad Baker-Mazara pretty good.
Okay.
Walking into the tunnel. He was talking to him and telling him, it was animated, let's put it that way, head bob and that kind of stuff. And I think that's what you want leadership to do. I think Bruce might defer to his seniors and say, hey, internal police this. But yeah, there was a conversation, I'm sure, also in the locker room from Bruce saying, hey, come on, man. We don't need that to happen with 33 seconds left to go in the half when Auburn should have been holding for the last shot anyway. And,
sure.
31 seconds and he shoots the three, which, you take it, he hit it. But still, Auburn really should have had the last possession. That could have been big. Those 2 points could have been big when the score was a 2-point game with 2 minutes left to go.
Yeah.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting features because every moment is exciting. When I follow my team on a late game rally, when the player I picked hits a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. The NBA back in action, and now is a great time to get in on some late night lines. The Suns, 2-point favorites on the road against the Spurs and the Lakers. 4-point favorites in Portland. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The Lakers lose at home to Charlotte.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast.
So very much in this game, Andy, to dislike. I don't want to say I gave him a pass for Wednesday, but I didn't freak out about it last week. This one was very annoying and very bad.
I'm not going to freak out over
No,
this
not
loss.
freaking out, but still very annoyed.
It was, to me, it wasn't even so much annoying, although I wouldn't blame anybody for framing it that way, as it was just very weird. It was a very weird game, very disjointed, very out of sync. One of the things I know I want to talk about over the course of the show is it felt like LeBron and Luka, even acknowledging they have been teammates for 3 total games and have barely spent any time with Luka healthy at all, but it felt like they might as well have been playing 2 separate games because they were involved so little together in terms of synergy.
I would agree.
But things really fell off the rails. They fell really off the rails for the Lakers late in the third quarter, coinciding pretty directly with Austin Reeves' ejection, which we'll get into. But even in the first quarter that the Lakers finished up 28-21, they turned the ball over 9 times in that first quarter. 5 of them belonged to Luka. And looking back on it, those empty possessions really mattered, because had the Lakers scored on just like a third of them, they get enough points to win this game. So it all ends up coming back to bite the Lakers in the ass one way or the other.
Yeah, and I look at this as they gave up 20 points off turnovers. So, which, given how often they turn the ball over, isn't a terrible figure. But again, to your point, Andy, if you either just don't turn the ball over in those situations to give up the points, or, how about this, score, you're in a different situation. Lakers only got to the line 12 times. They Rui Hachimura missed 2 critical free throws down the stretch. This was a game. You can point to I think it was 63 points the Lakers gave up in the second half. Whatever. This was a game the Lakers lost on offense. And it's like, I mean, to me, 100% a game that I don't care how many second half points you give up. In the NBA in 2025, when the other team scores 100 points, you should win. And like, that's just like, you should win when you hold the other team to 100 points. And you look at the Lakers and what they did offensively, and the numbers are just hideous. They shot 41% overall, 29% from 3 on 51 attempts. I mentioned the 12 free throws. Those 2 numbers, by the way, are directly related to each other. Too many threes, not enough activity going towards the basket, too many turnovers, and this is the result. I mean, this was a terrible offensive game. As JJ Redick said afterwards, they played, I think he estimated 39 to 44 minutes of really bad offense.
I mean, to reframe what you were saying about how in 2025, if you hold a team to 100 points, you should win. The flip side of it is the Lakers in the second half scored 49 points. And in, say, 1925, if you score 49 points and a half, you are leaving yourself susceptible for a loss. You mentioned the amount of threes that they took, 51, making only 15 of them. And it meant that they actually shot 22 of 39 inside the arc. And is against a team, Charlotte does not have much in the way of rim protection. In the period where we thought Mark Williams was going to be a Laker, we did note that protecting the lane is not his strong suit as a defender, as a player. And, he demonstrated that when he was on the wrong end of an absolute monster dunk by LeBron, who caught Mark Williams, his ex-teammate's body on that play.
Technically true.
But what I do think also it demonstrates is being 22 of 39 from inside the arc, but 15 of 51. It's not just that you missed a lot of threes. It's the shot selection on the threes were often terrible. A lot of step back threes from Luka in particular. If you're going to take that many, you need to make more. Austin Reeves, who was frankly having a pretty bad game before he got ejected, which might have in part led to
I
his
think it played a
frustration.
large part. Absolutely. Yeah.
Austin was, before getting ejected, 2 of 7 from behind the arc. I think they did not do a very good job looking to manufacture the shots that they missed. And I think that is in part the reason why they missed so many of those shots is a lot of them weren't that good of ones in the first place.
Standing around and all that kind of stuff. And I think your point that you were making, we'll get into a lot of the individual performances here and some of the big picture stuff. Look, Lakers play again tonight in, we're recording obviously on Thursday. For the audio version of this appear on Friday. Like, Lakers are in Portland.
Wednesday into Thursday.
On Wednesday and Thursday. Sorry, Thursday and Friday. And Lakers are in Portland on Thursday night. So you talk about Luka and LeBron seeming like they played sort of separate games. And I think intellectually nobody should be surprised by this. The last 2 really big pairings, look at these superstar pairings the Lakers put together. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Very easy to figure out how that works, offensively, the flow of that, whatever, who has the ball, where does the ball go, all that kind of stuff. That's not hard. Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, same thing. It's the same dynamic. Easy to know who's got the ball where, how that's going to flow, the positions there's much more overlap in what LeBron and Luka do. And while the potential, I think, for great stuff is certainly there, it also means a longer feeling out process. It's much more similar to when LeBron and Wade got together for the first time, and Miami went 9-8 before they went on like a 20-2 run or something like that. Now, the Lakers don't have necessarily that kind of time that they're down to 29 games left in the season. But bigger picture, when you figure out what Luka and LeBron are doing, it's like it makes a lot of sense that this could take a minute to figure out. Austin Reeves was not having a good night. I think he was absolutely frustrated at the lack of whistles. And he was, in fact, fouled on the play. You could see Yusuf Nurkic got his arm, pulled the arm away. I guess I could see it was close enough to the ball. I guess I could see why the ref missed it. But Reeves was correct. And he certainly earned the first technical. He said after the game, he got it. He understood, you're yelling at it. You walk up to the guy, you make and you're yelling. The second one, he was walking away, but he did turn his head and he didn't stop talking.
Yeah.
And did it look like a quick trigger? Sure. Should the referee probably have let it go? Maybe. I don't know. But the point is, Reeves got to be smarter than that. That is 100% on AR. If you're going to keep talking, and you probably shouldn't, you can't look back at the ref. And when the whistle blew, Reeves didn't look surprised. He walked right off the court.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think Austin knew that he messed up. First of all, according to English to Slovenian translation via Google, newsletter is glasilo. So look for everybody's Zdravo. Look for your glasilos if you subscribe to Locked On.
And I don't know if that's correct or not, but it's really the thought that counts. I think it's the effort that we're putting.
No, I've decided it's glasilo. So Zdravo, everybody, look for your glasilos when you subscribe to LockedOnDaily.com. Secondly, it's not just that Austin looked back while he was talking. He was extremely demonstrative on the original tech.
Yeah.
Like the thing that got him teed up in the first place was very over the top. So that's the point we have to realize you cannot talk.
Just
walk away. You cannot talk at all. I mean, you damn sure better make sure that if you're going to keep talking, it's got to be very calm, very okay, my bad body language. Let me talk. If you're
say
going
what you
to
want, but
do it,
if I'm watching on TV, it looks like I'm being super polite, even if I'm mother effing the referee, right down there. Yeah.
And things went really downhill after that ejection. To put it in perspective, 3:17 left in the third quarter when Austin was ejected. The Lakers were up 65-57. They had been up 13 in that third quarter. Charlotte then went on an 18-1 run over about 6 minutes that was eventually broken up at least a bit by a Rui 3. But the game absolutely went sideways afterwards. I mean, recognized before, Austin was not playing particularly well in this game to begin with, but you lose a lot of what you were looking to do from a rotational and an execution standpoint, just not having Austin there, even if he's not playing well.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets. Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
Bojan Bogdanovic is no more. But we get Killian Hayes. Oh, baby, what to expect?
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast.
God, man, we spent a lot of time, including you, solo, doing the Lord's work, talking about what has been the numbers, the odds, the percentages, the disaster of this season potentially for the Brooklyn Nets. But today, we get to talk about roster moves, and that's what we're most excited about post-All-Star.
Oh, Bojan Bogdanovic. We never knew ye. We literally never did. He never even came and played for the Nets, and he's already off the team. So that was that dream died hard. Although we kind of saw this one coming. Bojan ends up getting waived here. We knew that there was just a chance that this was going to happen. I think we kind of said this before the season started. We never really heard word one about him, right? Like usually with players like this, you'll get some kind of injury update or the team, we get these team PR reports and it'll say like, so-and-so's worked back to 5-on-5. We'll talk about that with Cam Thomas, all this stuff. They never even gave did they ever even give an injury report for him this year? I don't remember, except for just saying out. Like, I don't remember there being ever an injury report for him. It never seemed like he was close. It was salary fodder when they traded McHale. Yeah. And that kind of all it ever was. And I don't know if that means it's kind of the end of his time here in the NBA and he'll go back to Europe or whatever, or injuries, but it's not all that surprising that he never took the court. It was just like never talked about in a way that where you felt like it was really imminent at any point.
Yeah, I think they referred to him as a skin sack filled with broken bones and blood soup. There was nothing.
Man, really did not know where that was going, pal. Like I was like, whoa, we're about to hit the mute button here. And then it ended up.
Well, you got it. Yeah. You always want to see those jokes out. Sometimes it's a risk, but in the end, we landed the plane. And I like to think, perfectly. But there was no expectation that he was, we ever thought that he was going to be a part of this team this season or even be healthy enough to be on the team this season or anything else. So it's unfortunate. But remember, once upon a time, he was a Brooklyn Net who did play basketball for the Nets many, many years ago. It comes in conjunction with a couple of moves. We'll talk a little bit more about Tyrese Martin. It's a nice story for him to get converted to a full contract. They're playing on two ways. But this also makes room for one Killian Hayes. And this came up. Fans when you did Fan Take Fridays, going back maybe a few weeks or a month ago, it was, hey, have you seen what Hayes has been up to? You go back and you look at his tip-off tournament and regular season numbers going down to the G League. Are you excited about 33, almost 34 minutes, 17 points, 47% from the field? Listen, buddy, you combine everything he's done at the G League level, 35% from beyond the arc, probably the most notable. Are we surprised by this? I know that I'm not. This makes all the sense. 28 games. This is it. Killian Hayes, you want to reclaim your NBA career. You have 28 games with the Brooklyn Nets and all the space in the world, as Doug Norrie would say, to explore the studio, so to speak.
Well, buddy, I'm going to do what I hate. I'm going to cherry pick some stats in Killian Hayes' favor here, because if you actually take out the tip-off tournament in the G League and just go regular season, it gets a lot stronger. And we've said a lot where at the G League level, you have to crush it. Like if you're going to have any hope in the NBA level, you have to crush the G League, because the G League is, an order of magnitude easier just an easier run just in terms of the overall talent pool. It's there's just the players are worse. Like that's just so your numbers have to be way better in the G League than the kind of thing need to be eye popping, right? Just to think about sniffing the NBA. And frankly, Hayes' numbers in the regular season have kind of like been that. He's been 50% from the field, 40% from three, has gotten the free throw percentage up to 77%, which you love to see. I mean, all really good. And of all those, okay, of the two, I would say the 40% from three and the free throw percentage, back out the field goal percentage because the shots are overall are easier. Where the threes are going down and just standing at the free throw line, those shots are going in, right? Because that's talent independent. Like you're standing there by yourself, right? Like they don't intimidate you harder in the G League, or intimidate you less while you stand at the foul line.
LeBron's looking at you, as you try to take your free throw. That might get you a little.
Fair enough. I just meant like, okay. So, but the G League's not gonna they're not gonna have equal intimidation. That's really encouraging. It's really encouraging that the efficiency went way up because that was the exact thing we said. It's like, hey, if the efficiency's in the dumpster in the G League, forget it. What's the point? There's no point. But if you're going to get sort of like hyper efficient in the G League, then it's a 10-day contract. We'll see where it goes. But but he showed like those 13 games, he showed, okay, can hit the threes, can make some shots from the free throw line. Maybe some of this stuff is sorted out mechanics wise and in your head wise or whatever it is. I'm excited. We wanted this guy to play. Like these are just the kind of flyers we wanted Sean Marks to take. Post hype, something didn't work out, no risk. Like this is just the kind of guy. So yeah, I mean, it's only 10 days for now, but I'm here for it. I wish it happened sooner, but I can understand why it didn't.
Yeah, yes. I mean, like there's just like the order of operations over the course of the season. Maybe it's just the optics of it all when you go to bring him up. And then, of course, from a high level, which Killian Hayes was never fully this, but it's, swap out one non-shooter in Ben Simmons who could facilitate the crap out of the game for a guy that didn't necessarily shoot very well, but could facilitate the crap out of the game. Down there, the other stat is over 8 assists per game at the G League level. Now, it's 13 games, so the sample size is small. The other thing when you talk about the 40% from beyond the arc, to your point, it really matters that it's 5.5 attempts per game. Sometimes when you get into the stats and you say, and I'll use the free throw shooting as the example, it's less than 2. So is under 2 free throw attempts per game. Can I trust those percentages over 13 games? Probably not. But can I trust over 5 attempts from beyond the arc and say, hey, he's maybe figured something out with his mechanics, or like you say, between the ears, which has been the case with a handful of players in the past for Brooklyn? Yeah, like I'm willing to hang my hat pretty heavily on the idea that at least you can bring him up to the NBA level and think that can have value for you. If it was only a shot and a half from beyond the arc, again, I'd have a hard time if you're talking 30 to 35 three-point attempts over 13 games in the G League. I got a really big NBA sample size. The other thing is, as you talked about when we had...
but real quick, before you go on, real quick, the numbers. I mean, 72 threes in the regular season for them so far. It's not nothing, right? Like, it's not a huge sample size, but I don't know. You start to normalize probably not too far out on this number of threes, right? I'm not sure what the rate normalization is on attempts, like where that end starts to go, but you'd have to think it's probably like in the hundreds. I'm not like, I mean, I guess you can run hot a little bit, but you don't see it for like really, really long stretches. Anyway, a guy who can shoot 40% over 70 shots, like there's for sure something there. It's not 10, right? It's not 4 for 10. That's all I mean.
No, and by the way, if you go back and you look at it, like when he was at his worst in Detroit on 286 three-point attempts, when he was shooting 28%, right? But that was the only year when he really spiked. He had 2 years that bookended 23-24 and his rookie campaign where he only took 72 and 74 shots from beyond the arc. So take the sample size and be able to feel like it's getting in a better direction. That matters here.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love FanDuel's live betting features because every moment is exciting when I follow my team on a late game rally. When the player I picked hits a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. The NBA back in action, and now is a great time to get in on some late night lines. The Suns, 2-point favorites on the road against the Spurs and the Lakers. 4-point favorites in Portland. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Are the Knicks reinforcements about to arrive?
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast.
Coming out of the break here, Mitchell Robinson cleared for 5-on-5 practice, still listed as out for the Knicks' first game back. So not quite there yet. I think initially he was considered questionable, but then was later updated to out for this first game. So I guess they don't feel quite as good about his conditioning just yet. OG Anunoby questionable, which feels like usually the Knicks use questionable as a roundabout way to say probable and say that a guy is most likely going to play. But OG was technically listed as questionable the last couple games before the break and did not play. So maybe a true 50-50 shot that he plays in this first game back from break. But he's trending in the right direction. I don't know. How are we feeling right now about these injury updates? I'm feeling pretty encouraged. I think that Mitch is probably back within the next couple games based off how things usually go for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think far and away the single biggest thing here is that Mitchell Robinson is playing 5-on-5 because that's I think it was last episode. I talked about that a little bit, that even like I always try to really closely track the tone of Ian Begley's tweets. I will watch like his SNY post games and say like, all right, what's the tenor in his voice? And it's like going over this Zapruder film for me, because he tends to know more than he actually says and is very definitive in only going with what he is 100% sure of and not really like leaning one way or another based on reporting. I say all that to say, like, I was feeling a sense of like, yeah, they say he's coming back, but they've said that a long time, and we know Alex is a long time. People who've done this podcast for a few years, but just as far back as this summer, like the Knicks were saying, like, oh yeah, you'll see Mitchell Robinson, like like December, like he'll be back in a few months, and it kept getting pushed back, and we're just getting to a point like, are we actually going to see this guy play this year? And you could have a situation like Bojan Bogdanovic with the Nets, which is I feel terrible for the guy. Screwed the Sixers one more time. Like he had season-ending surgery after you kept hearing like, oh yeah, he's going to be back. He's going to be back. He's going to be back. And that has sort of been the trend with Mitch in recent years. So I was feeling a little bit of internal pessimism. And the single biggest thing is just that like he's running and he's actually taking contact, tells you that he is on a trajectory to be back very soon. So that is incredibly exciting because I miss watching Mitchell Robinson play basketball. I am extremely intrigued to see how he fits in with this team. And we're going to talk rotation a little later. Maybe we could do a lineup when he actually, or an episode when he comes back on lineups we're intrigued to see. OG Anunoby, Shams Charania had before the Celtics game that he will be back after the All-Star break. I doubted it a little bit. I'm like, well, they keep listing him as questionable. You know what? He knew better than I did. So I have a feeling he is going to play. And I think as they should, the Knicks were just very cautious with his injury. And honestly, at this point, like we can talk about it with Josh Hart too, but with Mitch also, like that should be the approach with all these guys. Like the Knicks seem very much locked into the 3 seed. I think it would actually be a good thing for them if they hypothetically fell to the 4 seed. Like, just take your time. Make sure these guys are healthy. Give them as much rest as they needed. That is my main priority the second half of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think in terms of the Mitch news, I think I'm pretty like of the mind that he's going to be back the next couple days as well. I mean, he's even. We know that Mitch is very active on social media and always very excited to share whatever he's doing, whether he's in the weight room or whatever. But he shared a pretty definitive go time with his practice jersey the other day. So I mean, if you want to read into that, it seems like he thinks that he's ready to rock at this point. And it's just going to be getting that final approval. I would assume the main thing is that they're probably just trying to make sure, like, get him through a few days of 5-on-5s, make sure that his conditioning is where it needs to be before you throw him on an NBA floor in games that you're probably hoping to win. I wonder if maybe putting him out against Chicago, it would have been fine, whether he was fully conditioned or not. Like, it's not exactly the cream of the crop, it's not like it's a game against the Cavs or something, but whatever. They're probably looking for it and saying, hey, let's make sure he is fully ready for 3 games against the Cavs, because I mean, he's the difference maker in that scenario. Like he is the guy that broke these guys' backs a couple years ago, or one of the main reasons that they had their backs broken in the playoffs by the Knicks a couple years ago. So, I think that's probably their line of thinking there. OG, I think we're going to reference him in the next segment too when we talk about this new heart injury. But Brian Suterer, who is like a doctor that deals with sports injuries and whatever, and has a great YouTube channel where he breaks down all this stuff, had mentioned with the OG injury, like when he saw it, first off, solving all of our fears and just comforting Knicks fans and being like, no, I know that some of you think maybe this was like a huge, like no contact injury, but actually look, his foot kind of goes a little awkward as he's landing. And he probably just strained his what was it? The Liz Frank tendons in between his feet.
Yeah.
And, he's like, it's probably just a sprain. He had kind of said with that, it's like any sprain, you rest and relax it, and then you can get taped up and whatever and try to immobilize the area, and you could play through it. It's just pain management, physical therapy, seeing what you can get through. So I kind of have I have a faith in the Knicks training staff, but I also do have kind of a faith in OG Anunoby himself as far as what his pain threshold is and what he can play through. I mean, I think I don't know. I know just from the pulse of the fan base and like his rep from Toronto and stuff, there was some worry last year about him, like, oh, he's, keeping himself out. He's not playing through it or whatever, with regard to the elbow or whatever. But then we saw in the playoffs, I mean, the guy like literally limped himself out there, Willis Reed style, in Game 7 and tried his best to play through a clearly mangled hamstring. So I think this guy is a pretty good read on his own body and what he's capable of, and if he's able to play at the level that he wants to play at. So I don't really have too much issue with them kind of taking it slow with that. If he doesn't play this first game against Chicago again, they're not like exactly the cream of the crop. I would hope the Knicks could get by with just their 2 all-star starters and, the rest of the guys minus OG and Mitch, or possibly Hart, I guess, if that turns into anything. But I'm feeling pretty good about these injury updates. Like I think we'll probably be seeing them very soon, if not this first game for both of them, then hopefully by the weekend or, early next week, something like that. I'm not going to lie. I don't have the schedule in front of me to know exactly when the next.
So it's Boston. This is what's interesting. It's Boston Sunday, Cleveland Friday. And if I were them, I would wait until Wednesday, because then you get another 2 days and then they play the Philadelphia 76ers. So the only fear there is that it rightfully inspires some PTSD in Mitchell Robinson. Though the last time he was on the court, he was shutting down Joel Embiid. So outside of the risk of Embiid deciding to try to pull him out of the air again, maybe Mitch just doesn't jump the whole game. I don't know. Outside of that risk, I do think that is a favorable matchup for Mitch, especially because Embiid is extremely hampered this year and is not really himself. Like that would be a good way to build some confidence versus throwing him to the wolves and letting Kristaps Porzingis rain threes on him. The alternative, of course, is you play him, which maybe is what the Knicks will do against Boston. Anyways, you play him when KP's out of the game. You let him battle with his old. I think they overlap his old practice foe, Luke Cornett. Am I wrong about that? Was Cornett off the team before he was on? I can't remember. Cornett was on it a lot. Cornett's had a nice career now, 8 years. Shout out to Luke Cornett. But that would be fine. I would just. I think the Knicks are going to do this regardless of the opponent. I would play Mitch like 10 minutes at most the first time he's out there. I would be extremely conservative with OG. Honestly, like people can tell me I'm crazy, like, and it's not the Tom Thibodeau way. I personally would probably like not play OG back-to-backs until like the last 10 games of the season when you're really trying to ramp up his cardio for the playoffs. Like I just wouldn't do it because we'll talk about it with Josh Hart. Like there are like injuries you could have literally just from overuse, and those are the ones that tend to lead to more serious injuries, which I think is why the Knicks haven't played him. But we can also get into the actual basketball impact, Alex, because I am just really excited. One, to see OG Anunoby play basketball again. Two, I think he's going to play really good basketball, because we saw when the Knicks, like what was the stretch? It was like 2-3 weeks ago where they had 4 days off, and then OG came back and he looked like early season OG again. I have a feeling after a game to get acclimated, we're going to see that. And the Knicks, if they don't take my advice and they play him back-to-backs, I want to see that against Cleveland. I want to see how he handles Evan Mobley. I want to see how they look against the Celtics with him guarding Jason Tatum from the opening tip-off. Like, I am just incredibly excited to see that dude play basketball and see if it makes any difference against these top teams. The Knicks, at least against the Celtics, have not looked very good.